Under the big mango tree just beside the school gate, Mama Put sat on her wooden bench, fanning herself with the corner of her Ankara wrapper. Her large pots of rice, beans, and stew sat on a makeshift table in front of her, but no one was buying. She watched as students walked past, laughing and chatting, but none of them stopped. Instead, they went straight to the school store to buy snacks and soft drinks. Mama Put sighed. This was how it had been for months. Every morning, she woke up before dawn to cook, hoping that today would be different. But nobody liked her food. By the end of the day, she would pack up her unsold food, take it home, warm it again, and bring it back the next morning. But still, no one would buy. Her heart ached. She was a widow with 5 children to feed. Since her husband died, life had been very hard. That evening, as she sat outside her small house, staring at the empty plates in front of her children, she felt tears gather in her eyes. "Mummy, are we going to bed hungry again?" her youngest son, Tundi, asked. She swallowed hard and forced a smile. "No, my dear, tomorrow will be better." But deep down, she knew things were getting worse. That night, as she lay on her thin mattress, she made a decision. She would go and see Mama Amaka. Mama Amaka was the most popular food seller in town. Rich men in big cars would stop at her roadside shop just to eat her food. People would fight over plates of her rice and stew. What was her secret? Mama Put was determined to find out. The next day, after closing her stall, Mama Put walked to Mama Amaka's shop. The place was crowded as usual. People were eating and licking their fingers, praising the food. Mama Put waited until the crowd reduced. Then she stepped forward. "Mama Amaka, please, I need your help." Mama Amaka looked at her and smiled. "Help? What do you want?" "I want to know how you do it." "Why does everyone love your food? I have been selling in that school for years, but nobody buys from me." Mama Amaka wiped her oily hands on her wrapper and shook her head. "We can't discuss this here," she whispered. "Come to my house at exactly 10 p.m. Mama Put felt her heart skip. 10 p.m.? Why so late? But she had no choice. That night, Mama Put could barely focus. She kept glancing at the clock. 9:30 p.m. She grabbed her handbag and left the house, walking quickly through the dark streets. When she reached Mama Amaka's house, she knocked softly. The door creaked open, and Mama Amaka let her in. "Sit down," she said, locking the door behind her. The room was dimly lit by a single lantern. The air smelled of strong spices and something else, something rotten. Mama Amaka's face turned serious. "What I'm about to show you is my secret. You must never tell anyone." Mama Put nodded eagerly. "I won't tell." I swear Mama Amaka led her into the kitchen. What Mama Put saw made her stomach turn. There, in the corner of the room, was a large drum filled with dark water. "What is this?" she asked, covering her nose. Mama Amaka smiled. "This is the water used to bathe dead bodies at the mortuary." Mama Put staggered back. "What? You cook with this?" Mama Amaka nodded. "Yes, it is the secret. It makes people addicted to the food. Once they taste it, they will always come back for more." Mama Put's hands began to shake. "Do you eat the food yourself?" she asked. Mama Amaka burst into laughter. "God forbid! Do you think I am stupid? I can never eat it." She then showed Mama Put a small bucket filled with human waste. "You will mix this in too. If you don't have enough, you can collect more from abandoned buildings." Mama Put felt like vomiting. "Are you sure this works?" she asked in a shaky voice. Mama Amaka smirked. "Go and try it. You will see the difference." For 3 days, Mama Put stayed inside her house. She couldn't sleep. She couldn't eat. She kept thinking about what Mama Amaka had told her. She knew it was evil. But then she looked at her children. They were hungry, weak, and suffering. Her husband was gone. No one would help her. If this was what it took to survive, then so be it. Mama Put made up her mind. She went to the mortuary, gave the guards some money, and collected the special water. She found an abandoned building and gathered what she needed. Then she cooked. The next morning, she took her food to school like nothing had happened. Her heart pounded in her chest as she set up her table. She carefully uncovered the steaming pots of jollof rice, beans, porridge, and stew. The aroma filled the air. She waited. Students walked past, as usual, heading to the school store. Would they ignore her again? Then it happened. A girl from JSS 2, Mary, stopped in front of Mama Put's stall. This food smells so nice, Mary said, sniffing the air. She opened her purse and handed over 200 naira. Give me rice and beans with stew, she said. Mama Put's hands shook slightly as she scooped the food onto a plate and handed it over. This is it. The first customer. Mary walked to her class with her food, balancing the plate carefully so it wouldn't spill. The moment she entered, her classmates turned to look. The rich, delicious smell of the food spread through the room like magic. What is that? Someone asked. Where did you buy that food? Another student asked. Mary took a spoonful and chewed. It tasted different, sweet, addictive, unforgettable. She had never eaten anything like it before. Her classmates gathered around her, staring at her plate. Please give me one spoon, her seatmate begged. Mary hesitated. She wanted it all to herself. But after some persuasion, she shared a few spoons. Then something unexpected happened. One by one, her classmates stood up and rushed outside. They ran all the way to Mama Put's stall. Within minutes, a long line had formed. By break time, the news had spread like wildfire. Teachers came out to buy. Senior students lined up. Even the school principal walked past and sniffed the air in surprise. By 1 p.m., Mama Put's pots were empty. She had sold everything. For the first time in her life, she held a large bundle of money in her hands. Her eyes filled with tears of joy. It worked. Days passed, and Mama Put became the most popular food seller in the school. Every morning, students rushed to buy her food. Some even skipped their first class just to secure a plate. She started making more money. She bought new clothes for her children. She repaired her leaking roof. She even bought a small radio to keep herself entertained at the stall. But then, something strange started happening. Students began falling sick. One by one, they developed severe stomach pains, fever, and weakness. At first, the school authorities thought it was malaria, but the number of sick students kept increasing. Soon the school clinic was full. Some parents became angry. They blamed the school's drinking water and demanded it be tested. The principal agreed and changed the water supply, but still, students kept falling sick. Nobody suspected Mama Put. Why would they? She had been selling in the school for years. Nobody knew her secret. One afternoon, Mary and her best friend, Precious, sat under a tree, eating their food. Precious took a spoonful and paused. Mary, have you noticed something? She asked. Noticed what? Mary replied, chewing. Mama Put's daughter never eats her mother's food. Mary frowned. Are you sure? Yes. Every morning while we are eating, she buys snacks and soft drinks from the school store. Mary slowly put down her spoon. That's true. But why? The two girls exchanged glances. Something wasn't right, and they were going to find out the truth. Precious and Mary couldn't get the thought out of their heads. Why was Mama Put's daughter not eating her own mother's food? It didn't make sense. The food was delicious, better than anything they had ever tasted. So why? That night, as Mary lay on her bed, she turned to Precious. Maybe she just doesn't like rice, she whispered. Precious shook her head. That's not possible. Did you see how fast she bought snacks and drinks? She was hungry. If her mother's food was really that good, she would have eaten it. Mary bit her lip. She hated mysteries, and this was a big one. The next morning, the line at Mama Put's stand was longer than ever. Even teachers were now buying food from her. Some students even came before classes started just to get a plate. As Mary and Precious got to the front of the line, they noticed something strange. Mama Put's daughter was there again, but she wasn't eating. She sat on a bench, drinking a bottle of Coke and eating chin chin. Precious nudged Mary. "Let's watch her." So they did. From a distance, they observed how her eyes darted around nervously whenever someone mentioned how delicious the food was. Mary felt something cold crawl up her spine. Something is wrong. That same day, another girl collapsed in class. The teachers rushed her to the school clinic. Later, they overheard some teachers whispering, "More students are getting sick. It has to be the water. We need to call a plumber, or maybe even the government." The school principal announced that they would run tests on the school's borehole. Precious and Mary exchanged glances. The students were getting sick. The school thought it was the water. But what if it wasn't? Something wasn't right, and they were going to find out what it was. The night was dark. The only sound was the wind blowing through the trees. The school was silent. Mary and Precious hid behind the classroom block, watching the big mango tree where Mama Put always sat during the day. Precious whispered, "Are you sure about this?" Mary nodded. "We have to know the truth." They had too many questions. Why didn't Mama Put's daughter eat her food? Why had they never seen Mama Put eat from her own pot? Why were students getting sick? There was only one way to find out. They had to check Mama Put's kitchen. The problem? Mama Put's house was outside the school, and the only way to get there was to jump the fence. Mary took a deep breath. She grabbed Precious' hand. "Let's go." They ran to the back of the school where the fence was lower. Precious climbed first, pulling herself up carefully. Mary followed. Thud! They both landed on the other side. Their hearts pounded in their chests. Mama Put's house was just down the road. The two girls walked carefully, hiding behind trees. They couldn't be seen. Soon they reached Mama Put's compound. The house was small. The kitchen was at the back. A dim light was shining from the window. Mary and Precious tiptoed to the window and peeped inside, and what they saw made their stomachs turn. Mary and Precious covered their noses. The smell was terrible. They watched as Mama Put dipped a dirty bowl into a large drum filled with dark, murky water. She poured it straight into the pot of food she was cooking. Then she picked up something from the floor. It looked soft and brownish. Mary's stomach turned. "What is that?" she whispered. Precious swallowed hard. "I don't know, but I don't want to find out." Their eyes burned from the awful smell. They couldn't take it anymore. They quickly tiptoed away, ran back to the fence, and climbed over. As soon as they landed on the other side, they fell to the ground, gasping for fresh air. They looked at each other. What had they just seen? Mary's hands were shaking. "We have to tell someone." Precious shook her head. "No one will believe us without proof." Mary thought for a moment. Then she said, "We go back tomorrow with our phones. We record everything." Precious took a deep breath and nodded. They had uncovered something terrible, but now they had to prove it. The sun was hot that afternoon, but Mary and Precious didn't feel it. Their minds were racing. They stood near Mama Put's food stand, watching as a long line of students waited eagerly for their turn. The rich smell of smoky jollof rice filled the air, mixed with the spicy scent of pepper soup and the sweet aroma of fried plantain. Even teachers were there, chatting happily as they waited for their food. Mary clenched her fists. Didn't they see what was happening? Didn't they notice how many students had fallen sick? She turned to Precious. We have to stop them. Precious nodded. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. Stop! Don't eat this food! She shouted. Silence. Everyone turned to look at her. Some students frowned. Others laughed. Precious, what's your problem? A girl asked, her plate full of steaming rice. There's something wrong with this food, Mary added, her voice firm. But instead of listening, the students burst into laughter. So because you don't have money for food, you want to spoil business? A boy sneered. A beg, leave us alone, another girl scoffed. Even a teacher shook his head. Stop spreading rumors, girls. This food is the best in this school. Mary's chest tightened. They weren't listening. The students took their food and walked away, enjoying every bite. Precious gritted her teeth. This won't work. We need another plan. Mary glanced toward the big mango tree. Under it sat Ada, Mama Put's daughter. Like always, she wasn't eating her mother's food. Instead, she nibbled on Chin Chin and sipped from a cold bottle of Coke. Mary's eyes darkened. We'll start with her. Precious walked over to Mama Put's stand, forced a smile, and handed over money. 1 plate of rice and stew, please. Mama Put, dressed in her bright Ankara wrapper, grinned widely as she dished out a steaming plate of food. Precious took the plate, her hands shaking slightly, and walked back to Mary. Together they approached Ada under the tree. Hey, Ada, Mary said, smiling. Come, let's eat together. Ada looked up, confused. Precious placed the plate in front of her. The rich aroma rose into the air. For a moment, Ada didn't move. She just stared at the food, her face twisting with disgust. Mary and Precious watched her carefully. Then Ada's hands started shaking. Her breathing grew fast. And then she jumped up, pushed the plate away, and ran. Mary and Precious gasped. Precious quickly lifted her phone. She had recorded everything. She grinned. That's proof number 1. But Mary's stomach twisted. If Mama Put's own daughter refused to eat the food, what exactly were they all eating? And why did Ada look so scared? Precious and Mary stared at each other, their hearts pounding. They had just recorded Mama Put's daughter rejecting the food, proof that something was terribly wrong. But how would they convince the rest of the students? Nobody wanted to listen to them because Mama Put's food was just too delicious. We need stronger proof, Mary whispered. Nobody will believe us unless we show them exactly what's inside her food. Precious nodded. We have to go back to her kitchen tonight. This time, we'll record everything. The plan was risky, but they had no choice. They decided to sneak out of the hostel again at midnight. When the school bell rang for lights out, the girls pretended to sleep. As soon as the hostel got quiet, they tiptoed to the back of the dormitory, climbed over the fence, and ran towards Mama Put's kitchen. The air was cold, and the school compound was eerily silent. They hid behind a bush, waiting. Moments later, they saw Mama Put emerge from her house with a large black bucket. She moved quickly, looking around as if checking if anyone was watching. Then she lifted the lid of a huge drum sitting beside her kitchen. Mary covered her nose immediately. A horrible, rotten stench filled the air. What's that? Precious whispered, holding her breath. Mama Put dipped a small bowl into the drum and fetched out a dark, thick liquid. She poured it straight into the pot of soup she was cooking. Mary felt like throwing up. The smell alone was unbearable. Then, to their horror, they saw her grab something wrapped in a black nylon bag. She untied it and dumped the contents into the pot. Precious gasped. It looked like human waste. They couldn't take it anymore. That night, the school compound was silent. Most students were fast asleep, exhausted from the day's activities. But inside the girls' hostel, a surprise was waiting. At exactly 11:30 p.m., the senior prefect, Femi, and two teachers entered the dormitory with a torchlight. "Everybody wake up!" one of the teachers shouted. The girls groaned, rubbing their eyes as they sat up on their bunks. "Head count," Femi announced. "Everyone must be present. If you are not in your bed, your name will be reported." The students grumbled but sat up quickly. Unexpected head counts were rare, but they happened whenever the school suspected students were sneaking out at night. Femi and the teachers began checking, moving from bed to bed. "Anita, here. Chisholm, here. Fatima, here." One by one, they called out names and marked attendance, but when they reached Mary's and Precious' beds, silence. The blankets were there, neatly arranged, but the beds were empty. Femi's eyes narrowed. She checked again. "Mary? Precious?" No answer. He turned to the teacher. "They are not here." The teacher frowned. Where could they be? Femi quickly wrote their names down and handed the list to the teacher. "These two are missing," he whispered. The teacher's face darkened. "Tomorrow morning, they will explain themselves." Meanwhile, outside the school fence, Mary and Precious had no idea what was happening inside their dormitory. They were busy spying on Mama Put's secret, but soon they would find out that trouble was waiting for them when they returned. The next morning, the school bell rang loudly across the compound, signaling the start of the morning assembly. Students dressed in their school uniforms hurried to the assembly ground, forming neat lines according to their classes. The teachers stood in front, their hands folded, while the principal, Mr. Sunday, stood on the raised platform, scanning the crowd with sharp eyes. A cold silence filled the air as the head prefect, Femi, walked up to the microphone. He held a small piece of paper and cleared his throat. "Sir, during last night's head count, 2 students were missing from their dormitory." A wave of murmurs ran through the students. Everyone was curious. Who had dared to sneak out in the middle of the night? Mr. Sunday frowned and took the paper from the prefect. He glanced at the names and then looked up. "Mary Chukwu and Precious Bello, step forward." The students turned their heads, whispering among themselves. Mary and Precious stood frozen for a moment, their hearts pounding. Slowly they stepped out of the line and walked towards the front, their hands shaking slightly. Mr. Sunday's deep voice rang across the assembly ground. "Where were you two last night?" The entire school fell into complete silence, waiting for their response. Mary swallowed hard and took a deep breath. Then, with all the courage she had, she lifted her phone. "Sir, we went to find out the truth about Mama Put's food." Gasps erupted from the students. Some teachers exchanged worried glances. The principal's frown deepened. "What truth?" he asked, his voice stern. "By the way, why are you with phone in school? Whose phone are you holding?" Precious stepped forward and looked up at him. "Sir, we have proof that Mama Put is using dirty water to cook. We saw her fetch water from a drum filled with dirt and insects, and we saw something that looked like—" She hesitated, then covered her nose at the memory. "Sir, we couldn't even stand the smell. It was horrible." A deep silence fell over the assembly ground. Some students placed their hands over their mouths, feeling sick. Others shook their heads in disbelief. "Do you have proof?" the principal asked, his voice lower now. Mary nodded quickly and tapped her phone. "Yes, sir, we recorded everything." She pressed play, and the video appeared on the big projector screen behind the principal. What they saw made everyone's stomach turn. The video showed Mama Put in her small cooking shed. She fetched dirty brown water from an old drum, poured it into the pot, and stirred the food with a large wooden spoon. Then she took a scoop of something from a small black nylon bag and dropped it into the pot. The thing looked slimy and rotten. A horrible stench must have filled the air because, in the video, Mary and Precious could be heard coughing and struggling to breathe. Screams and gasps filled the air. Some students covered their mouths, their faces turning pale. A few teachers stepped back in shock. The school nurse ran forward, covering her nose. The principal stepped away from the screen, his face twisted in disgust. He looked like he was about to throw up. Mama Put, who had been standing under the mango tree at the corner of the assembly ground, suddenly realized what was happening. Fear shot through her body. She quickly picked up her food bowls and threw them into her wheelbarrow, trying to escape. "Stop her!" someone shouted. The security guards dashed forward and grabbed her just as she was about to push the wheelbarrow away. "Bring her here!" the principal commanded, his voice filled with anger. The guards dragged Mama Put to the front of the assembly, forcing her to stand beside the principal. Her face was wet with sweat, and her body shook with fear. Mr. Sunday turned to her, his face dark with rage. "So, you have been feeding us this poison?" Mama Put dropped to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "Sir, please, I had no choice. I needed money to take care of my children. My husband is dead, and I have 5 children to feed. Nobody was buying my food before, so I had to do something to bring customers." The students gasped again. One of the teachers, Mrs. Kalu, stepped forward. "So, you mean to say you knew your food was not clean, but you still sold it to students and teachers?" Mama Put nodded slowly, crying even harder. "Do you eat your own food?" another teacher asked, crossing his arms. Mama Put shook her head quickly. "No, I have never tasted it." That was the final straw. The entire school erupted in cries of disgust and anger. "How wicked can you be?" a student shouted. "You made us sick and you knew it?" another student screamed. Even some teachers could not hold back their anger. Mr. Sunday raised his hand and the noise died down. He turned to the security guards. "Call the police." The students cheered as the guards pulled out their phones. Tears streamed down Mama Put's face as she begged, "Please, sir, have mercy. Don't let them take me away. What will happen to my children?" But nobody felt sorry for her. A few minutes later, the police arrived. They handcuffed Mama Put and led her away while the students watched in shock. Some still couldn't believe that the woman who had been feeding them for years had been cooking with such filth. Once she was gone, Mr. Sunday turned to Mary and Precious. His expression softened. "You two broke a school rule by sneaking out at night, but at the same time, you saved this school from great danger." He took a deep breath, then smiled slightly. "For your bravery, I am awarding you both a cash prize." The students erupted into cheers and applause. Mary and Precious stepped back into the crowd, and their classmates rushed to hug them. Some students who had fallen sick because of Mama Put's food thanked them for saving the school. That day, parents arrived at the school, furious about what had happened. Many of them personally thanked Mary and Precious for exposing the truth. Their parents, especially, were extremely proud of them. From that day on, no student ever bought food from unknown vendors again. The school also made a strict rule. No outside food was allowed in the compound, and for Mary and Precious, their names became famous in the school. They had saved everyone from a terrible fate, and they had learned a lesson that they would never forget.